Welcome to the Property Buyer Podcast, where we explore the world of residential and commercial real estate to help you make better decisions about buying, selling, or investing in all types of property. Join me, Rich Harvey, CEO of Propertybuyer.com.au and multi-award-winning buyer's advocate. Our podcast features expert interviews, market trends and insights, and practical tips for navigating the complex world of Australian real estate. Whether you're a home buyer, a seasoned property investor, commercial buyer, developer, or simply curious about the property market, our podcast is for you. Join us as we share our knowledge, strategies, and experience and help you achieve your property goals. Well, welcome to another edition of the Property Buyer Podcast. I'm Rich Harvey, CEO of Property Buyer. Today's guest is someone who's redefining what great service looks like in the finance world. Joseph Daoud is director of It's Simple Finance, a firm that lives up to its name by stripping away the jargon and complexity to help Australians borrow smarter and live better. Now, Joseph started his career at Macquarie Bank, where he developed a deep understanding of how banks operate and then used that knowledge to advocate fiercely for his clients. He's been recognised at the highest level, winning both the MFAA Excellence in Customer Service Awards in New South Wales and for all of Australia. Last financial year, Joseph and his team settled over $201 million in loans. And if you need proof of impact, he's got over 100 five-star Google reviews. Now, beyond business, Joseph is also a proud new dad, which is bringing a fresh lens to the idea of building long-term wealth, stability, and freedom through property investing. Now, this episode, we'll be doing a deep dive into how investors get stuck, some smart borrowing strategies for home buyers, overcoming fear of debt, and also look at the latest lending trends that you need to know. So, Joseph, welcome to the podcast.
I've had some intros given before, but I've never had anything like that. Rich, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure, mate. I love your energy and passion that you bring to the task of helping people get funding and finance, mate. But we start with a little tradition with our podcast here at Property Buyer, Joseph, where I'm going to throw you a thought of the week. And this one is from a famous painter, Vincent van Gogh, who said, "If you hear a voice within you that says you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced." What do you take from that quote?
Look at fear and just do the task anyways.
Okay, yeah. So interesting.
It's, it's a lot of the time we are sometimes our biggest roadblocks. I'm not too familiar with Vincent van Gogh, but if he had that thought in his head, well, he's one of the most accomplished artists of all time. So he silenced that thought.
That's awesome, mate. I think we are sometimes our own worst enemy. We actually put our own roadblocks thinking, I don't deserve to be wealthy, or I don't deserve to have that partner, or I don't deserve to have that life. And therefore you live a self-sabotaged life, or I'm never going to be good enough to go to the Olympics or whatever. But you know what? Just put those voices beside you, out of your head, and go, I can do it. That's what I love about this quote, mate. So, yeah. Look, I'd like to hear a bit about your journey, if that's okay. I was wondering if you could share perhaps a little bit about your own property or investment journey. When did you first start, and maybe share some experiences from those early stages of your life?
So I started my property journey 11 years ago. It was 2014, and we had a family member that was building some apartments down in Wollongong. At the time, I was at university. I was 24 years old, and he needed to achieve a pre-sales target to receive funding for the next stage of his development. So I was approached, and I was asked, and I was told, hey, we can give you this at a discount. You will be receiving a completed property within the next 12 months. What do you think? So I purchased it. It was a 3-bedroom apartment down in Wollongong. And at the time, I bought it for $410,000. And I am very proud to say today that it is now worth $800,000. So that was the first one.
2014.
2014.
Good on you. Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So the biggest thing I learned from that experience was sometimes you have to take a little bit of a risk. Even you can do all the research in the world. It is anxiety inducing when you're first buying your first property. Yeah. But no risk, no reward.
That's really, look, you've done really well. You've doubled your money. I'm just doing the numbers there. It's 2015, 2025 now, and so you've basically doubled your money. But it reminds me of my first property too. We ended up buying an apartment in Alexandria. I can't remember what year it was. It might have been 1998 or something for 270 grand, right? Nice 2-bedroom, right? So it's probably worth 1.2 today. But like I remember just thinking, oh, what are we doing? We've paid off most of our home loan. What are we doing? My wife and I. And my wife would walk the pavement. Hey, Rich, why are we getting into so much more debt? Another 280 grand worth of debt. Same thing, right? We had this massive fear. Then we just looked at the numbers and went, it makes sense, right? We've got to start creating a nest egg. We were just about to have kids like you are right now. You got a 3-week-old, I believe, and wow.
Yes.
And we never look back. So, yeah. So, go on. Yeah.
Yeah, just whenever it comes to, creating that wealth, or, you're sitting there and you're worried about debt or anything. At the start, everyone is always worried about debt. I was worried about it. I had a mortgage of $320,000 at the end of it. I was, stressing. And then soon enough, I realized it's not that bad because I could use some of that debt to offset my individual tax return. And I could also use some of that debt, and I could also, have the rental income service that debt. So I eventually found a tenant, leased the property out, and soon enough it was positively geared with the rental prices going up down in Wollongong because it's such a college town that, those places are in such demand. Okay. So I just really realized, hey, there's opportunity in property. And this is, I was a kid. I was 24.
Yeah. Good on you. That's great.
Thank you.
Well done. So talking about risk and leverage, how do you personally approach balancing growth, like using debt and managing risk with your own investments then? Like, do you sort of load yourself up or just do it slowly? What do you do?
For me personally, it really depends on how much activity I could put into my own business at the time. If I've got, everything is humming along quite well and, we're in a growth stage, I will look to load up as opposed to looking to be more conservative. However, over the last few months, I knew I wasn't going to be as effective with work. So we changed the strategy a little bit. And instead, we reduced a couple of the lines of credit that I've got access to because I just know I'm not going to be able to work as many hours. Now, you and I, we're both self-employed. When you're self-employed, you are the king of your own destiny. So you can make the decisions on how you want to effectively use debt. And right now, I thought to myself, I'm going to be a little bit more conservative. I want to spend more time with my wife and my firstborn son. And after we're in a little bit more of a routine, we'll focus on the growth again.
Mm-hmm. Good on you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Got to say congrats on becoming a dad. You mentioned off air 3 weeks ago it happened. Is that right?
It's 24 days ago now. But who's counting?
I think that's one of the reasons we actually had to delay recording this podcast because I think I had you booked up and then that day I think the next day you had the bubs, right? So.
Oh, it was literally like,
yeah, amazing.
Rich, I'm sorry. And you were like, what's going on? It was I'm sorry, mate, but
That's fine. Look, tell me also just becoming a dad, right? That's a big moment. What did that feel like for you? Just describe some of the emotions you had holding your son for the first time.
So he came out, we didn't know the gender until, he arrived. Yeah. And I was so excited to name my son after my brother. No. I've got an older brother. His name is Charles. Yeah. And then he was crying and they go, Joe, do you want to hold him? And I was like, oh, let him stay with mum. Yeah. And then he was crying and then he comes to me and he just goes quiet and he goes to sleep.
Beautiful. Yeah.
So how can you describe that to people? It's the best feeling in the world. And at that moment, you just really realize that that's everything. It's the most important thing. And, it's why we do what we do.
It's it. It's a precious moment. I just sort of, when you're describing that moment, I was thinking to when my son was first born, some almost 26 years ago. And now he's like a 6'2" giant. But I remember holding him in my arms, same thing. He was crying a bit. I just cuddled him. And then I thought, this protective instinct just kicked in. It was like, this is my son. I am going to look after and protect him. And it was just, I felt my heart just swelled with just love and pride and just emotion. It was an amazing feeling. But yeah, it really finds you. Like, you can't describe it unless you've been there, right? It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. I've got some other great property and finance questions to ask you as well, but like a defining moment or turning point when you realized you wanted to reshape the lending experience. Like, a lot of people think, oh, you know what, I can just go to a bank, I can do it myself, or, you know, you might have had lackluster experience for a broker. But what was the defining moment for you? You just went, I want to start this business and really help people get money, get the right kind of finance.
The defining moment was whilst I was at Macquarie. It was one of the last deals that I had done when I was, an employee there. I had an individual. He, was an immigrant like my parents, permanent resident. He had saved an 10% deposit. He was just looking for something for himself and his wife to live in. And they had just, similar to myself, they had just had a newborn. And all I thought to myself at the time was, who am I to just give this person a no? Mm. And back in 2018, the policies were a lot stricter. Mm. There weren't as many exceptions at the time. And I still remember once we got the deal formally approved and settled, the client said to me, thanks for making it simple for me. And that's where the business name kind of came from. I just thought to myself, why is it so difficult for mums and dads, family-oriented people? Why is it so difficult for small business owners? Why is it so difficult for all these individuals in Australia to gain access to finance? So that's when I came up with the business name, It's Simple. Yeah. And luckily for me, itssimple.com.au was not taken. So that was really the turning point. And I just thought to myself, I'm just going to keep educating people. Mm. I'm going to provide them with the access, or provide them with the knowledge that a lot of the lenders don't actually give. Everyone's got nice, shiny commercials and, comparison rates. Mm. But what do they actually mean? Yeah. Yep. The comparison rate is based off a $150,000 mortgage. It doesn't make sense 99% of the time. So I really thought to myself, okay, you know what? I'm going to go start some YouTube channels. I'm going to do some Instagram reels. I'm going to post some LinkedIn content. And that is what has effectively allowed my business to grow. Mm. Rather than sitting there and thinking to myself, oh, you know what? I'm just going to stay in the bank and I'll keep being this employee. I thought to myself, I want to make finance simple for people.
And that's like your passion to educate people, Joseph. That's a real kind of nerve for you, right? That to see people get access to things like, you won't take no for an answer, but it's about getting the right education to your client, right? Mm.
It's getting the right, but I just believe that if you are working hard, you should not be at a disadvantage because you don't have access to the same networks as certain individuals. Mm. A lot of people in Australia, especially when it comes to small business owners, they don't have the direct line to, someone that's working high up at CBA or St. George. Yeah. Instead, what I try and do is provide a platform that people, they might just be scrolling on Instagram or they might be on LinkedIn and they might see a lending product that is suitable to them. And if I can make that person's life easier, or I can help their business grow, or I can help them get into a home, there is no better feeling. Whether it's a $150,000 loan for, purchasing some assets for a business, or if it's a $45 million loan for a, commercial construction project, it doesn't matter. I know I am bettering individuals' lives in Australia.
Wonderful, wonderful. I want to ask you a bit about money mindsets. Was there a particular money mindset shift that changed the game for you? And is that something that you've tried to instill in your clients?
The belief that when you say money mindset, my mind goes in a million and one directions. But the first one is not all debt is bad debt. And I think I realized that when I was about 22, 23 years old. Once I realized that you can use debt, you're using someone else's money to purchase an asset that grows in value. That's when I truly started to believe, hey, wait a second. This isn't a bad thing, especially when you can use, negative gearing and you can reduce your taxable income. That was the real pivotal moment. And the second pivotal moment was when I was at university and I learned what return on capital was. When you're purchasing a $1 million property, but you only need $100,000 deposit, and then that $1 million property becomes $1.5 million, you might have made a 50% ROI, but your return on capital is actually higher than that because your initial injection was only $100,000. So I think it was those two things, realizing not all debt is bad debt and realizing that return on capital is a key thing that you need to look at when it comes to making smart choices and investments.
You have just nailed this. If I had a highlighter pen, I'd be getting it out now. We're in an audio podcast, right? I can't get my highlighter out, but I love what you've just described. And I just want for our listeners just to stay on this point. This is a critical point because this was also, like for you, a defining moment for me that set me on a trajectory, right? So I'm an economist by training. I've done 2 degrees in economics. I love numbers, right? But you talk about...
Rich, I'm an economist too, and I'm a mathematician.
Love it, mate. Love it. That's why we get on to it. But as you're talking, the first thing you said, I'm going to sort of summarize it into 3 letters, OPM, other people's money. So it's really cool as an investor to get addicted to opium, right? Other people's money, right? Not the actual drug, but opium, right? So let's just use that as a comedic point just there, because that's once you like it, say it takes ages, right, to save up 150 grand. But once you've got 150K of capital, wow, that can set you up for life if you know how to use it right, okay? And the second point you made about return on capital and ROI is the point about leverage. And once someone took the time to explain how property financing and property buying works and how to invest smartly, I was off and I did 3 properties in 1 year. I never looked back, right? So I think for our listeners out there, fear of debt is something that can really hold people back. So how do you coach your clients through that kind of fear of debt process, particularly first-time buyers who might be just scared of making a bad decision?
That's a very good question. And I have to be brutally honest right now, Rich. When it comes to a lot of first-time buyers in the market, you said it earlier, 201 million settled in the last 12 months. In that, there was 239 transactions.
Wow.
Of those, 4 individuals were first-time buyers.
Wow, small proportion. Yeah, right.
It's a very small proportion. But the reason there was only 4 first-time buyers is because the market has actually taken off. And the people that made the investments 2 years ago when I was marketing myself to first-time buyers, when they took advantage of the schemes when they first came out, what I was guiding them and what I was telling them at the time was, hey, we've got a very limited amount of dwellings being approved in Australia. Yeah. We've got a finite amount of CBD in Sydney. You've got Bondi and then you've got Ocean. You can't go further east than Bondi. Okay. And then we've got the Blue Mountains, and in between there, that's basically Sydney, all the way up to Penrith, basically. So in that space, if they are not approving dwellings, and if they are not approving, new projects, and if it has become too expensive for builders to actually build in these locations because land cost is way too high, I am not allowed to coach people on purchasing or anything, but I'm allowed to provide them with the statistics and show them, hey, this is how many dwellings there are. This is the rate of immigration. What do you think is going to happen with properties when you're in you're in Australia's largest economic hub? Yeah. It's only going to go up. Yeah. So are you going to make the decision to make the purchase now, or do you want to let the market escape you? Everyone said 2-3 years ago, and I still remember we were sitting at a round table at Cub. Everyone was like, the market's going to stagnate, it's going to crash. What did we say for the last 3 years? We saw nothing but growth. I think Australia grew 11%. I can't remember the exact statistics.
And we had a record number of people attending. And one of the questions the first question was, what happens when the market's going to crash? It's going to crash in a few years. It's like, and then all of my slides are about exactly what you're talking about. We've got an undersupply of property. The 1.2 million homes that we're trying to build, we're going to be 300,000 to 400,000 short. So we are entering a critical phase of, it's not so much a fear of debt now, it's a fear of getting left behind for those that, just choose to sit out of the property market versus those that choose to sit in it. And I think there's a lot of fear around debt because people think they won't be able to service their mortgages. But, we're entering a phase now, what I call a new super cycle, where we're likely to have 3 more rate cuts, definitely one booked in for August. And I think there'll be another 3 after that, at least 2, but definitely possibly 3. And that's just going to re-accelerate the property market. So I think, a lot of people that have got that fear should just need to learn how to manage debt, set a budget, and go forward, So,
but they also need to understand the debt structures. Okay, they need to be working with a good accountant, and I am going to gas you up a little bit here. They need to be working with a good buyer's agent at the same time.
Exactly.
Because you might have someone that can provide you access or the facilities to be able to receive the debt, someone like myself or, another broker out there. But you also need to be working with the other 2 individuals. You need a good accountant to assist you with setting up trust. To let you know, hey, this is going to impact your cash flow in a way that I don't see fit and it's not going to allow you to be feasible, or they're going to give you the advice and say, hey, you can actually grow further. And then you need a good buyer's agent, because the buyer's agent is going to point you in the direction. They're going to be able to unpack your brief and find the location and make sure that you are matched with the property that is going to help you accelerate your wealth.
Yeah, really, really good point.
We really appreciate you tuning in to the Property Buyer Podcast, and I hope that you're finding our expert interviews helpful. So that we can keep providing this information and growing our audience, we rely on word-of-mouth recommendations. If you found this information useful, could I please ask you to share this podcast with your friends, family and colleagues, and ask them to subscribe to the Property Buyer Podcast. It would be a big help, and we'd be very grateful for your support. Thanks once again for sharing the links. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
So tell me about property investors getting stuck. Like, the ATO stats show that a large proportion of people have 1 investment property, a couple of people have 2, but very few have 4 or more. What's the reason property investors get stuck in trying to build a decent sized portfolio, do you think?
How long do we have on this podcast?
As long as you like, mate. So, they want the answer. They want the utopia.
I think I've got several answers to this question. Number 1, I think, is comfort. People sitting there, they might have purchased 1 or 2 properties and they're thinking to themselves, oh, you know what, I've done so well, I'm just going to relax a little bit. And they don't actually monitor their interest rate, which the banks hike and they drop all the time without your knowledge. And they also they become satisfied with that, and that's okay. Like, if you're happy with your 1, your 2, your 3 properties, a lot of people don't purchase 1 property. So if you're happy with your 3 properties, that's great. And the kudos to you too. But the people that are trying to propel themselves forward, there could be a chance that they might have been matched with an incorrect lender. There are some lenders out there that really do not like it if you own more than 3 properties or 4 properties in your personal name. Then there's the other side of it, where if you're not working with a good accountant, as I said previously, you might not be purchasing these properties in the right entities. I always say, if you're looking for growth, why haven't you considered opening up a trust and purchasing a property within the trust? Because that will allow you to be able to grow even further. Now, a lot of smart individuals went out there and they were purchasing in their supers, and, we now understand that the federal government wants to possibly tax that at a higher rate. But what we're going to see is them just shift those properties into, discretionary trusts, because those trusts will allow them to leverage even further and grow their portfolios out even more. So what makes people stagnate is not trusting professionals or not working with the right individuals to help them create these structures so that they can grow further.
Really, really good point there too. Yeah, excellent point. Are there any other kind of money myths or outdated beliefs about lending that you are constantly having to debunk for clients or prospects and people you talk to?
I've just hired someone recently, and we were talking about this on our flight down to Melbourne. He was, but don't you think it's a better idea to pay down your mortgage first and then go buy something else after? And I thought to myself, you are going to spend the next, let's say you're making your extra repayments and you've got a really good plan set up and you pay off your 30-year mortgage in 18 years. Yeah. In 18 years, how much is the property market going to grow by? So we're going to wait 18 years
cycles at least, maybe 3 in that period of time.
Yeah. We got at least 2.5 in there, mate.
This is the old, that guy Paul Clitheroe used to be on TV, the financial advisor, all the conservative advisors. Pay off your debts first, then think about investing in something else. Maybe have a little bit in your shares in the share fund, but in the super fund, but no, don't do any other properties because you don't want to over leverage,
Mm-hmm.
And you look back, even just your Wollongong example, right? If you'd bought 3 of those properties, not that I'd recommend buying 3 in the one group, but you would have made 3 times what you would make $1.2 million by doing that, right? Rather than sitting doing it.
That's the thing, but you don't know what you don't know. And if you're sitting there and you're thinking to yourself, I've got to pay this down, I've got to pay this down, I've got to pay this down, well, you're not going to grow. Okay. You might end up at a goal that you are comfortable with, but 95% of the people that I'm in contact with every single day, their focus is growth.
Good.
They want to grow. They want to acquire more property. Why? Because property is the key to wealth in Australia. We are a blue-collar country that is built on the backs of tradies. Our electricians drive Lamborghinis, and the lawyers are driving, Toyota RAV4s. We are a country that is built on this. So we have to think to ourselves, okay, if we build ourselves on property, what's going to make us money?
Yeah.
That's what's going to create the wealth for me. And if I'm going to sit there and make my $4,000 a month repayments on my mortgage, okay, expecting that's going to make me wealthy, that's not going to make you wealthy. It might make you debt free, but it's not going to grow your portfolio assets, okay, that are going to outpace inflation like crazy.
Yeah, cool. Can I take you forward in a minute here? Because we're talking about growing and getting multiple properties, right? But, for someone, let's say, they've taken your advice, they've taken my advice, they've got, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 properties in their portfolio, right? Is there going to come a day when everything just needs to be recalibrated? Because this is what I often get asked. I know the answer to this question, but I want to ask you, is there a point at which you might sell a few properties and pay down some debt? Or do you just keep going on this growth mindset forever until you're 95?
It depends on the type of person you are. Myself, I'm always growth mindset. When I always think, I just want to keep going. I want to see how much more I can achieve. But that's me now. I am 34 years old and I don't know who I'm going to be in 61 years. Hopefully I'm still here in 61 years.
And you got a 3-week-old. Come on, you're at the early phase, mate. Yeah, very much at the
end. But it's the way that I think about it is there might be a point where you actually I've misspoken there, where you instead pass on those properties to your kids.
Yeah.
There is that point. And you hear it from parents all the time. I want to do what's best for my kids. I'm thinking about my son outside. He doesn't know what I look like right now. He only sees shapes and blobs. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think to myself, okay, what can I give this child in the long run? And to say to yourself, oh yeah, you know what? I'm just going to end up parking it. Why would you want to? Why would you want to? Why would you not want to work with somebody that is going to create a strategy for you to make sure, hey, you know what, we're going to purchase this commercial asset. It's going to be positively geared, okay? And then once we've paid down enough of that debt, we can actually use some of the income from that commercial asset to pay down another one of your debts. That other property that we're focusing on, that's focused on capital growth. Why would you not work with someone like that?
Yeah.
Why would you think to yourself, oh, you know what, I'm going to put my feet up? No. Sorry if I've jumped.
No, it's good. No, but it's good. But I think some people can't envisage. They think, but I'm going to end up with, $4 or $5 million worth of debt. That's crazy, right? But then I talk about the flip side. I say, look, if you do have $5 million worth of debt, by the time you're 55 or 50 or 60, guess what that $5 million worth of debt looks like in terms of value of your portfolio? It could be 10, 12, 13, $15 million, right? So your net wealth could be, $5 to $10 million. And the serviceability is positive cash flow. So you basically have a self-sustaining asset base. But until you buy that actual asset base, you're not going to get there. So I think people that have what I call the miser, pay down the debt as quickly as possible mindset, that's not the growth-orientated mindset, they're the ones that get stuck. Whereas those that go, hey, I've got the right structure, I've got the right approach, I understand debt is manageable, not going too hard, but really building it up, they're the ones that are going to really get to their final wealth goals down the track.
You always have to work within your means. I'm not saying to someone that's earning $70,000 a year, hey, we're going to, go apply for a $3 million mortgage. That's silly. It's barbaric, but also, I'm not even going to get into that. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have the means to grow, if you have the capacity to be able to do so, then work with the professionals to make sure that you are in that trajectory. Because every single person I have ever met that has bought property in Australia, okay, depending on, some old red brick apartments and such, but people who have invested in land, people who have invested in the right suburbs, they've never looked back and said to themselves, damn it, I'm so upset I got a $700,000 mortgage on a property that was worth $1 million. Oh, I can't believe it's only worth $4 million now. I see that all the time. Exactly. If you took $1 million of debt and you invested that $1 million of debt in Mount Druitt, okay, 10 years ago, there's a chance you would have been able to buy 3 properties, maybe even 4. Yeah. Okay, go look at the median value of Mount Druitt right now.
Absolutely.
It's astounding.
Exactly.
So why would you consider, but I've got $1 million in debt? Yeah, guess what? You've also got your weekly rental income covering that debt. Like it's the rate of rent, the way that rent grew in this country, the lack of supply we have in housing, and then on top of all of that, the reduction in the amount of building approvals. You have to make sure you set yourself up with the right strategy to be able to grow and to be able to set yourself up for the future.
Yeah, awesome. Great response.
You could hear how passionate I am about this.
I want to help people. So talking about helping people, how have you seen a shift in, say, the Generation Z and millennials? How do they view borrowing compared to the older generations?
They are risk takers. I will tell you now, the ones that I've come across, they do want to be able to take things on because they have very different influences compared to, the generation just before mine. And, the one, like my generation and younger, I'm really starting to see like the 35 and under, they are happy to go into the higher amounts of debt. They want to be able to go build a duplex. They want to go be able to purchase a house and land package. They want to grow. A lot of them are on Instagram. They're on TikTok. They're watching the videos and they're seeing that property growth is the key to wealth in Australia. But unfortunately, their wages don't match the dream right now.
Yeah.
So the Gen Z and the Gen Xers, unfortunately, a lot of them, I'm not going to rag on them too much, but what I am going to say is if you have that dream, you have to start working towards it and you have to have that self-control. Yeah. You have to have that delayed gratification. Okay. Just because you see a few friends and they're going and they're spending money on some silly stuff doesn't mean that you have to go do that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking about bad debt and good debt earlier. It's so easy to apply for a credit card and get a $5,000 to $10,000 limit, that can handicap someone at the age of 18, 19. All right. They don't know the effects of a credit card at that age.
Yeah, that's right.
They need to learn how to delay that dopamine so that they can have that end goal in 5 to 10 years time.
Yeah. Really good points. So we've talked a bit about borrowing through a trust. Are there any other kind of smart borrowing strategies that either home buyers or investors could use, but they're kind of overlooked?
Before even setting up a trust, it's using multiple lenders. It's using your second or your third tier lenders because they have different rules compared to the big four, big five, including Macquarie. Yeah. If you look at a bank, for example, like First Mac, most of the lenders like CBA, NAB, let's just say big four right now. They have to work off the 3% buffer rate. When you look at your second or your third tier lenders, a lot of them have rules that they can use a 2% buffer rate, or they can use a lower amount to be able to service a higher debt. So quite often I have had clients approach me. Let's say I've got a couple sitting right in front of me right now, Rich. Okay. The combined household income is 200 grand. They've got a $10,000 credit card and they might have a car loan. Okay. So in total, their maximum borrowing capacity to buy something is anywhere between 850 to 1.1 million. And you go, wait, hold on a second. How's it 850 to 1.1 million? Well, your 850s, your really conservative banks, they're the ones that are using APRA. They're the ones that have to adhere to, a 48%, 48% credit card rule. Like there's so many rules that are involved with that. But then you have a lender like Liberty that uses a 1% rate. So even before setting up an SPV or setting up a trust or anything like that, I would be looking at using the other lenders to maximize your borrowing capacity because the interest rates are not too different. The difference between a 6.19 and a 6.39% interest rate is not that big when you have a $200,000 a year household income. Another thing I'd be looking at is land. Look for land. Try and find places that, I'm not saying you have to be able to go build townhouses galore, but look for something that you can go and put a granny flat on and then have dual income on that property, because those are the properties that are going to accelerate you. They're going to get you so much further because granny flats cost these days, would you say about $210,000 to $250,000?
Exactly. Correct. 100% right.
Okay. Yep. So you're putting something that's worth $210,000, $250,000, and then there's potential to $450 to $500 rental income a week. What are we looking at rental yield there? $25,000 a year, 10% yield?
I get $650 from mine, mate. So, yeah.
Oh, you see what I mean? You see what I mean? So buying a house that has enough in the backyard that you could put a granny flat on there, okay? Look for areas that work with a good architect as well. That's another professional that you have to consider, because you don't go through the DA process, okay? You're seeing it, I'm seeing it. For somebody to get a DA these days is absolute torture, but to get a CDC,
complying development consent, for those that don't know,
that is a different kettle of fish.
It's really cool.
8 weeks compared to 2 years sometimes.
Now, Joseph, you've raised a really good question I'm just going to throw at you here. It's a one from left field, but question for the audience here is a bit of a pop quiz. Which do you think is the most important criteria to look for with lending? Is it the interest rate or the maximum amount you can borrow? So
maximum amount you can borrow. And I'm not allowed, I should not be saying that.
Jump the gun. No, and this is what I want to ask you. Why do you say it's the amount borrowed rather than the rate? Please explain why, because I'm totally with you.
I've got two different reasons why. The first one is the rates are that different. Okay. Yet again, as I mentioned earlier, it might sound so much higher when you're at a family barbecue and you've got someone in the background going, I only pay 5.99%. And you're sitting there and you're like, but why do I pay this much? Okay, that's cool. Great. But if you can borrow more with a lender, I'm not saying you have to borrow all of it, but let's say you could borrow more with a lender. If you need to do an internal refinance and access some equity so that you can go and purchase another property, you are better off already being with that lender as opposed to being with another lender. Then you've got to worry about the discharge and all those other items. So if you can borrow more money from the start, okay, then borrow more money, because that means you have the means to be able to service that debt. As long as you're working with a good broker, don't go working with a broker that's going to, put you in a dire situation. Work with someone that's going to sit there, they're actually going to run the numbers with you and ensure that you can sustain a mortgage of that value.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So for me...
Sorry, I get too passionate about this stuff, mate. I get excited.
I love it. This is so good. I can see your passion coming through, Joseph. Like, for me, to answer that question, like, I used to get...
We don't even have a camera on and you can see it coming through.
Exactly. I can feel the energy. It's so cool. But, in my earlier sort of investing career, I used to be really rate sensitive, and I would just like, I've got to get the sharpest rate. But as you get more mature as an investor, you realize the rate is very much a secondary, third, fourth order priority. It's about how much you can borrow. It's about your borrowing capacity and maximizing that. I mean, I get clients coming to me, they go, Rich, my broker said I can borrow, 900K, but look, we only want to spend 600. And I say, well, why? Like, why would you want to get the best quality asset? I mean, if you go and spend 600, 650, you only got 250 left over. What are you going to buy for 250? Right? Let's get the best quality property. You're going to get a better rental income, a better suburb. Let's do that. And then that puts you into the better position to get your next one. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Right. So for me, getting addicted to OPM, other people's money, the bank's money, I want to borrow as much as I can to maximize my growth focus, if that's the stage you're at in your investing career, so you can get to your goals faster. Those that take a more conservative approach, they'll get there, but they're going to take, maybe 10 years longer. So when you're talking to your broker, do the numbers, make sure it's achievable. Yeah, and look at the. I really liked your point about diversifying your lenders. That's a. Really
there's one more thing I do want to mention. Okay, take the conservative route and you only purchase something worth $600,000. What is the rate of growth in that area? Okay, so you might have a lower mortgage, but you're not getting any closer to your end goal.
Yeah.
You're not getting any closer to having a property portfolio and being able to retire at an earlier age. Okay, there's a reason why there are certain locations in Australia that go for cheaper than other locations, and that is because proximity is power. People all want to be in the same pockets, whether you're in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, whether you're in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, whether you're in the peninsula up in Brisbane. Up in Queensland, people all want to be in the same locations, and the closer you are to those locations, the higher the return on capital will be.
Cool. I've got another little pop quiz to ask you. I'm just throwing you the things left that just come into my mind, but I hope you don't mind. But buying a home first or buying an investment property? A lot of people get hung up about this dilemma when they start out, right? How do you, because it's going to be different for different people, how do you answer that question or help guide a client that's debating whether to buy their first home or whether they should buy an investment property? How would you approach that question?
It's a very difficult question to answer, Rich. Because every individual is different. However, buying a home, when you're buying a home is where you're raising a family. It's where you're raising your kids. It's where you want them to go to school. Are you in the right catchment? Are you in the right postcode? If you're compromising where you want to live because this is what I can afford, in my personal situation, and this is not advice to anyone, this is just my personal situation, I would say to myself, no. How can I get to the suburb I do want to live in faster? And that is by purchasing an investment instead, okay? And then using the growth there, like within that investment, to increase my capital and then eventually buy where I want to live.
That's awesome advice. You're answering the question beautifully, because it's all around guiding principles. There's not a one size fits all solution to this question. I know you've got some more to say, and I'll jump in as well if I can, and then please give me some more thoughts around this. But I think home or investment, it really comes down to the person's goals and also their financial situation. We're helping a lot of investors do exactly what you described that now, is they can't afford to buy the $3 million property on the North Shore. So buying maybe 2 investment properties, or maybe 3 if they can afford, and rent vesting. So they're living in an area that's fairly close to where they want to be, because that's where they want to be, and then buying investment properties elsewhere. Now, as long as you're in the market, it doesn't matter, But I also think your home as well is a wealth building asset. No, you can't use the interest as a tax deduction, but also thinking about where you do end up buying your home, consider that also an investment and buy the best quality home you can, because that's going to go up in value and you can leverage against that to buy more investment properties.
Well,
you've got around that.
Well, there's one more thought, and it's not numbers based. It's more so, the mental side of it, the emotional side of it when you're buying a home. If you are unhappy in the suburb that you're living in, you're always going to be thinking the grass is greener on the other side. And guess what? It probably is. So, Rich, how annoying is it moving houses?
Yeah, exactly. It's a pain in the backside.
It's the biggest pain in the world. Yeah. So do you want to do that several times? Or do you want to be able to build towards the location that you want to move to, okay, in the right way? And then once you do have enough capital and you can go purchase that home and you are of the right age, that's when you purchase it. But I've got a really great story I just want to share with you. I had a client 18 months ago. Yeah, about 18 months ago. It was the end of 24. It wasn't the end of 23. She is in her 50s and she had never owned property before. She was renting, but her business started to boom in her 50s. Okay. She's buying her first property. Okay. We are applying for first home grants and everything for somebody that's in their 50s. And, there's a lot of negotiation between us and the lender that we approached because exit strategies and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But she was so happy with having her own 2-bedroom apartment in Ryde. Okay.
Awesome.
In that particular situation, that was one of the most satisfying mortgages I've ever settled because I was able to help somebody that was in their 50s purchase their first home, their first owner occupied home, and live in it. And she didn't have to pay rent anymore. She had something to call her own, something she could give to her kids one day.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, great. That's awesome.
Someone like that, I'm not telling her to go for a growth strategy, and she's probably not going to listen to a growth strategy.
Yeah. So, great story.
Thank you.
Joseph, I want to ask you about access to equity. So how has access to equity changed in the current market, and how are savvy investors adapting their strategies around that?
Well, accessing equity, a lot of the lenders have changed their rules around it. Previously, it was you have to provide X amount of evidence to be able to show this. You want to be able to push that. You need the contract of sale up right now. That doesn't exist anymore. A lot of the lenders are using self-declaration in order to be able to provide people with access to that equity. There's also several lenders out there, depending on what profession you're in, that will be able to provide higher equity amounts. If you are a legal professional, you can borrow up to 90% of your property and access up to 90% of the equity. If you are a medical professional, depending on what industry you're in, you can go up to 95%. There are so many different lenders that are focusing in on their niches because they've got people that are much smarter than myself sitting there analyzing the risk and finding out, hey, do these individuals actually default, or do they pay off their mortgages regularly, and are they successful in doing so? So, for example, you're now seeing banks like Westpac and St. George provide nurses and midwives up to 85% lending. Brilliant. That didn't exist before.
So good.
And that isn't just for a purchase, that's for refinances as well.
And rightly so. So good to hear the medical profession are getting, not just the doctors, but the nurses are getting a bit of a kick. That's great.
Yeah, vets are now included. My wife's an optometrist. Previously, she wasn't included in any of the brackets. Her name is Dr. Alison Daoud. Now she's, considered one of them. Now she can go up to 90% with a lot of the lenders. Awesome. So you'll see a lot of these banks be able to provide that. You'll see banks like UBank, for example, that will allow you to go up to 85% as long as it's owner occupied. You don't need to be a first home buyer or anything. As long as you've got an owner occupied property, they will allow you to go up to 85%. Okay. And you have to be PRYG, but we won't go into that, Rich. So you're seeing a lot of the lenders provide these products. You're also seeing the third tier lenders allow people to go up to 90%. For example, Bluestone, for a period of time, were offering up to 90% mortgages without any lender's mortgage insurance as well. And then we're seeing lenders so we've got a lender on our panel Not sure if you've heard of them. They're very small. They're called Resi Essentials.
No, I haven't heard.
Resi Essentials provides 40-year mortgages now.
Wow.
So that will increase your servicing, but they provide something called monthly LMI.
Mm-hmm.
What monthly LMI is instead of you paying, a $40,000 fee up front for your lender's mortgage insurance, they'll chop that up into, let's say you go for a 40-year mortgage, that's 480 months. Yep. They'll chop that $40,000 up into 480 times. Instead, you're paid about $900, $800 on, let's call it about $825, okay, a month, but they will allow you to go up to 90% and draw down that equity too. Mm. So you're seeing a lot of the lenders actually, I don't want to say get creative, because creative sounds like a negative word, but be strategic with the way they're allowing people access equity.
Good. Well, it's a point of difference for the lenders, and that was you were answering the next question I had for you, which is what sort of some of the emerging trends of some of these lenders in the lending space. And has any other credit policy changed in the last 12, 18 months? And that's really helped.
The biggest ones that we've noticed is anyone that's got HEX debt.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of the banks have reduced their buffer rates to 1%. Mm-hmm. CBA were the first ones to do this. So CBA came out with the policy in April this year, where they said, if you've got a HEX debt and it's going to be paid off in the next 5 years, we're not going to punish you for it. Okay. It is not, you should not be handcuffed because you have a debt because you went to university and got an education. That is not fair to you. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce your buffer by 2%, and it's going to be a 1% buffer across all your lending. So let's say you've got a car loan, you've got a personal loan, you've got, I'm just trying to think of something else, equity, not equity, you got one of those furniture loans. I can't remember what they're called, those interest-free ones that people never pay them off and then we end up having to refinance it. You've got those things. Instead of you being charged that 3% buffer rate, you're getting charged at a 1% buffer rate. So it's allowing people to actually borrow more and being able to access more equity. For the longest time, interest rates in this country were 2%. So they were working off, add 3% to that, they were working on 5% interest rates. People were able to borrow and leverage, a much higher amount. The banks hired a lot of people to service those individuals. Okay, they need to make sure that those people stay hired as well. The banks don't like firing people. Okay, they do not like reducing the amount of people that are working for them because it looks bad on them and it reduces their shareholder price. So they have to think of strategic ways to stay busy and continue growing and continue being profitable. And they've been very strategic in that way.
Very clever. Joseph, I've got two more questions for you. Obviously, with lots of AI coming around and automating all sorts of things in finance, is your role as a broker in danger? How do you see it evolving over the next 5 years? Are we still going to need?
I actually see it. I actually think to myself that AI has enhanced what I do, what you do, what a lot of the people that genuinely care and do the research do. Because if you go on LinkedIn right now and you type in the word broker, every single person's not Facebook status, LinkedIn post or their statuses or whatever they are, they look exactly the same. It's the exact same opinion every single time. When you have people that genuinely care and they put genuine thought into things, all it does is make you stand out from the rest. Where it has enhanced us as brokers is it has enhanced our method of saving documents, of validating documents, of submitting loans. We got a formal approval with NAB 3-4 weeks ago. No, it was just before, I think I wanted to say 6 weeks ago. In 58 minutes, from submission to formal approval in 58 minutes.
What was that?
Because of AI and technology. So it's all to enhance the broker's role. The people that are saying, it's going to replace us and everything, I'm sorry to say this, but this should be an enhancement tool. You should be using AI to build yourself up. Okay, you should be using it to automate things, to make things faster. You don't want to be doing the small tasks that technology can do. What you need to be doing is creating relationships with individuals out there. And yet again, I know my answer's long-winded, but let's say, for example, 5 years ago, everyone was like, Facebook ads, Google ads, everything. AI has made everything online look so similar that I now no longer want to buy anything online. I want to buy things off people that I have relationships with. Okay. If I don't have a relationship with you, I'm not going to trust you. I'm not going to go spend money with you. So all AI has done is push people more towards the relationships and that connection. They don't want to be dealing with a robot. So I think role of a broker, I actually see enhancing, not being handcuffed.
Good to know, mate. Good to know. Wonderful. Look, my last question for you. Could you share perhaps the best piece of wealth building advice that either you've received or you've given to someone else?
Wealth building advice that I've received or ever given. Follow the path of least resistance. I've got to explain this. My brother-in-law turned to me, and this is when I was 18, and I'm thinking about, doing everything but focusing in and making money. He turns to me and he goes, if your father owns a sock factory and you can make $1 billion selling socks tomorrow, you're telling me you want to go do this, you want to follow this goal instead. No, you follow the path of least resistance. Go in the direction of where the money is flowing. Money's flowing to property, okay? And and you can recognize that. Start flowing that in that direction. And when he said that to me, I just kind of looked at it and I was like, that does make a little bit of sense. Like if there is a method, okay, that makes sense, that's logical, that the government actually promotes because, a lot of them are heavily property backed. Try and find the way that they're all doing it. Follow the path of least resistance. Go have a look at where they're buying and then just follow that.
Love it. Fantastic.
But yet again, that's opinion, not advice. General in nature. That's what I have to go with, Rich.
Wonderful, Joseph. Look, well, I've got to say there's 3 E's that stand out for me today in talking to you. It's been very educational, it's been very entertaining, and it's been very enjoyable. So I just want to say a big thank you for being on the Property Buyer Podcast today, sharing your knowledge, and it's just been wonderful. So thanks again.
Rich, you are an amazing human, and thank you so much. And guys, just to let you all know, Rich calls me up at 2 o'clock and he goes, Joe, I've got a 3:30, let's do it. I go, all right, let's do it. Come on, baby's asleep. Let's go, baby.
That's great.
So thank you so much for having me on, mate.
Where can people find you if they want to get a great loan from a great broker? What's your website?
www.itssimple.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn quite frequently, and, I'm going to throw in a couple more plugs. Melbourne. We'll be opening up there soon. If you want to come visit us at our Barangaroo office, you're more than welcome at any time as well. So
fantastic. Wonderful. Well, Joseph, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, listeners, for looking us up and staying faithful to our podcast. Please share it.
Thanks for being with us on another Property Buyer podcast. If you have a question you'd like to ask, please click on the SpeakPipe link and we'll answer this during the next episode. If you're looking to buy a residential or commercial property in the near future and would like to get the added advantage of having a buyer's advocate on your side, then please reach out to my team today and send us your inquiry, and we'd be delighted to help. Please visit our website at propertybuyer.com.au, where you can stay updated with all my latest market updates, weekly blogs and live suburb profiles to help you make better property decisions. We look forward to connecting with you again on the next Property Buyer podcast.